welcome to the Steady On Stronger Together podcast. I am your host, Angie Bauman. Today's guest is Leigh Mackenzie, and I was so honored to have this discussion with her. Leigh's story is quite difficult because she experienced sexual abuse from the time she was 3 or 4 years old. Because of the intense trauma that was present during her early years, she repressed most of her childhood memories. As an adult, she dealt with panic attacks, depression, and anxiety, never understanding where they came from. When a trusted friend suggested that Leigh seek out a trauma therapist, Leigh found one. In therapy, she began to remember her past and connect it with the mental health problems she had been experiencing for years. Leigh is speaking out about her past abuse and journey to healing for the first time here with the Steady On community. I was honored she put her trust in me and inspired by her courage. I believe her willingness to be open about her struggle will offer hope to others and remind all of us that we never walk alone. Let's listen in. Hello, Steady On friends. Good afternoon and welcome. I want to welcome my friend Leigh Mackenzie. We're so excited to be talking to you today about a serious subject. And right off the bat, I just want to say, if you have sexual abuse or trauma in your background, I'm just going to encourage you to listen to this with a friend or listen to it maybe later or listen to it and then know that you can call someone, have someone that you can call if you need, because one of the things that Leigh and I both know, we have very different stories, but have sexual abuse or trauma in our background. And one of the things that I have learned, and Leigh, you're welcome to speak to this even before I introduce you, is that sometimes when I hear other people's stories, it can really pick at that scab. And so I just really want to lift that up and let people know that we are going to handle this discussion with the utmost of care, but it does have it's a difficult subject matter. So if that's something that you struggle with, just take care of yourself. That's what we want to encourage you to today. So, but I'm excited to have Leigh here, who is talking about her journey with healing from trauma. And Leigh comes to us from Quincy, Ellen. Are you in Quincy today? Because I know you have.
I'm actually in Chicago.
You're in Chicago.
Chicago okay. Our place.
Okay. All right. She splits her time. So lives in Quincy. Her home is Quincy, but lives in Chicago also. And she is a wife and a mom and a writer. And when I asked her to tell me just a couple of things about herself, she talked about her teacup poodle that she loves so much. Right? And that she's quick to give a hug, except for this has to be the whole shelter in place thing social distancing has to be tough for a hugger. Yes.
Yes. All of the non-touch, anyone who has touch as your
no touch,
is
right?
Going crazy.
Yeah. And also that she stinks at small talk because she likes to go deep fast. And that's certainly been true between the two of us as we've gotten to know each other just a little bit better. Leigh and I met this spring, just a couple of months ago, I guess now, on Shannon Popkins' launch team for her book, Comparison Girl, which Shannon was on the page in May talking about Comparison Girl. I loved her work in that. It really got a hold of my heart and really brought some gentle correction to some things, some of my own behaviors. So anyway, Leigh and I were on that team together. And I was so drawn to your encouragement, your enthusiasm. And then just a little bit later when we connected on Facebook, I realized that you have, a lot of story in your background. And so it made me want to know more about you. An interesting fact that she shared with me is that she attended the U.S. Military Academy in West Point only 10 years after they began admitting women. And my guess is we could probably do a whole interview on that. That's not our focus for today. But I bet we could do an interview on that. And most recently, she was an assistant to an executive preaching team at a multi-site megachurch in the Quincy area and did a lot of sermon research and Bible background information for that preaching team. So her work has been featured in the Upper Room. Mine too. There's another thing we have in common. The Lookout magazine, the Christian Standard, and writing on her first book, She Appears So Normal, is the working title. It's almost complete, or is the writing complete at this point?
It is. I am 52,000 words in right now on the story, and it has been a journey over the past, since December 2019. kind of uncovering, it's like almost like a mystery story in a sense of uncovering
Yeah.
your
It's like your own mystery story. Yeah. Mhm.
It
And so,
is, it
yeah.
has
So the
been.
focus of her book has been on healing from trauma. And she's documenting her journey through EMDR trauma therapy. We're going to talk about what that is in just a few minutes, which you've been in for about 7 months now. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
And
So Leigh gave me a
amazing.
little bit, yeah. So Leigh gave me a little bit of permission to kind of share some background of her story. And then what I'm going to do, Leigh, is just kind of share some basics about the background of your story, because the focus of our interview today is really going to be on what God's doing now. But it's important to have some background so that you know why God needs to do anything in Leigh's life now. But so I'm going to share just a little bit, and then Leigh, I'm going to give you the opportunity to add anything that you would like for us to know.
That's perfect.
So Leigh has dealt with fear, anxiety, panic attacks, depression, some things like that, not really knowing where that came from. And through some advice from a loving friend who is also a counselor or therapist, right?
Yes.
Really encouraged Leigh, after kind of getting to know her and observing her behavior and some of the struggles that she had, really encouraged her to seek out some trauma therapy because her background, the therapist background, let her know something else is going on here, right underneath the surface.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit of something. And so she entered this EMDR therapy. Again, we're going to talk about that in just a second, and began to experience some childhood memories, because prior to that, you had almost no memories, right, from your childhood.
I had very few snippets of knowledge of my memories, and mainly they were focused around photographs or like the family lore stories about what happened. And so I just didn't really remember. I couldn't have told you most of what my family life was really like.
So would this be fair? Like, most of your memories were maybe third person memories, not first person memories? Is that yeah. So I know what happened to me because people have told me, or I see evidence of it, but I don't know what that felt like or how I experienced something. Yeah, I have some of those as well. And now she understands more why all that was suppressed. Leigh was raped when she was around 4 years old, and then also was in an abusive situation between about like 2nd grade and 5th grade. So a lot of abuse, a lot of sexual abuse in her past. And so I think a lot of times, for especially children who go through that, our brains, our hearts, our souls are not equipped to process all of that in that state of immaturity, like developmental emotional immaturity. And so therefore some people I know, like, they can develop like split personalities, because that's a real thing, where they're like, I have to divide this up. This person can't handle all the pain. So we're going to have some other people to share it. Right. Or some other people like yourself. I just don't, I can't.
I talk about it as like the little me, the middle me, and the teen me. And those are kind of, not that I was split, but they would kind of surface up, because that's the way you deal with trauma.
Because you can only handle so much. Right.
Your brain has to figure that out.
Yeah, it's got to go somewhere. Right. Yeah.
And I really believe that Jesus also just kind of, at certain points, the reason I didn't remember almost all of this is that he's just like, sweetheart, just turn your face away from it.
Yeah.
Look at me, and I will reveal all when you're in a safe place. That's the way I like to think about it.
That gives me chills, because it's almost as if, like, we would probably see the repression or the absence of childhood memories as this big negative that we have to overcome. But if we could view that as God's grace, and then also the therapist friend, the EMDR trained therapist that is working with you now, like, and then this is also God's grace, because there's this slow understanding of, but so for a while you have to put something away. But what I want is not for you to hide it, but to be free of it. So now I'm taking you to a place and bringing you some help where you can work through it. So it's just God's grace everywhere. But that doesn't mean it's easy.
He allows you to put it in I put all of my memories in these gorgeous boxes. The scariest or most horrific memories were all placed into these beautiful boxes with silk red ribbons and blue ribbons, Tiffany blue. And that's how I dealt with my past. They were kept in boxes. I didn't even know they existed. And occasionally they would open up and I'd get surprised by these memories, or by the feelings, or by the coping mechanisms that would happen in situations that were similar. And then I was like, oh, I don't know why I'm doing this. And that's part of, and then I put it back in the box and then away.
Yeah.
So
and when it starts to raise, like all your instincts are to just push it, you know. And I think the process that you're going through right now is this like ability to say, actually, this is what I say, that's how I describe it. I'm going to sit right here in the mess and not look away, because this is where God is bringing healing and freedom. So
Amen.
Is there anything else? Because now Leigh is just beginning to talk publicly about her story and write about it, and this journey that she's been on. So before we dive into some of the questions around what's happening in your life right now, is there anything else you'd really like us to know about your background or your story before we move kind of into more of a present day focus?
Yeah, for right now, I think that we're going to leave the story with, you know, being a very young child with horrific sexual trauma, starting probably around, the grooming started around maybe 3 and 4. I think that's what we can talk about right now. As long as you all understand that that's kind of the foundation, the place from which I jump. I think we should be good.
Awesome. And you guys are welcome, those of you who are watching live, I see that some people are, so you are welcome to put some comments or questions and say hey too, and just let us know if there are things that you guys want to talk about. So as we get started then kind of with how you are right now, explain to our viewers and listeners a little bit about what EMDR therapy is and how it's helping you process childhood trauma. Just talk to us a little bit about what you're using, what Jesus is using, right?
He totally is.
To bring light. Yeah. Because I want to say this real quick. Like I am a firm believer, because I've been in lots of therapy, so there's no secret about that either. God uses like science and doctors and for his work. So I just, that's just my feeling on this. So Jesus
and
heals,
medicine.
right? Yes, Jesus heals, and he uses people and science, you know, to do it. So anyway, I just kind of want to go on record saying that. So
you're preaching a story there, sister.
I'll be quiet now and let you talk about where you are and what you're experiencing.
Fantastic. So I had a psychotherapist friend that, as Angie mentioned, said, you know, I really think that I'm seeing some indications that maybe you have some symptoms of severe trauma. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I guess I should start. You know, I made an appointment with a trauma therapist. She's a certified EMDR trauma therapist. And what that is actually, because I didn't know what it was. I had never researched it actually until right before I came on to talk with you, Angie, because I didn't want to like trick.
How do I explain this?
Trick the system.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't want to trick the system and like try and like anticipate what it is that I'm supposed to do.
Gotcha.
I really trusted God for the healing portion, for him to bring what he needed to bring. And I am just the servant to walk with him through the valley of the shadow of death. And so what the EMDR trauma therapy is it's actually been certified for use for PTSD, which I have. It is certified for combat veterans, and my stuff didn't come from combat, but any sort of massive trauma like that, so rape, they have it for panicking attacks, anxiety, eating disorders, addictions, physical assaults, or car accidents. It has been certified for people who have those extreme kinds of traumas. And what it is it's EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And what it uses is either physical, like I see lights, I can choose to see lights flashing, or I can have hand paddles that buzz back and forth not in a pattern.
Okay.
And it allows my body to focus on external something. And what it does is it helps my traumatic memory system to reactivate. And I have no idea how it works. All I know is it started around 1989, and it has been used very successfully in a variety of different patients that have had trauma and PTSD, anxiety, depression, suicidal tendencies, eating disorders, etc.
It's like, and this is just a like, it's almost like your brain works so hard to keep the memories down. But when you're doing something like that, it's like, then it's working on that. And so it allows the memory. I have no definition of this, but it's something like, about making the brain
cross back and forth.
It reminds me almost of like a TENS unit, which actually doesn't do anything, but it tells the brain that it doesn't hurt, right? Like when you're back, like, because some people wear those on their back or something. It's kind of like that, so that you can, So
it's hard to explain, and
it is
part of it is like, this is just like this strange I call it this magic thing, whatever.
Mhm.
It's not magic, but all of a sudden, as I started the therapy,
Yeah.
I would go with the memory or whatever would come up. And what it helps to do is it connects the trauma networks in your brain, and it allows you to pay attention to the physical sensations that are also going on in your body as you recall a traumatic past event. And so a lot of it is, what are you thinking? What's coming through your brain right now? Allow your brain to process. And then it's asking, what is your body? How is your body responding to this? Where are you feeling sensations? What, like, sometimes it's, I feel like I got to go run and my legs want to like move back and forth really fast because I want to run away from something. Or I'll feel like a pain in my heart because I was so betrayed. And how broken is my heart? Or I'll feel places where I was hurt. And it's the most, I don't know how the brain does this, but the body remembers everything that's ever been done to it.
And so how is that helpful for you? Because my question then is that, like, that all sounds like negative to remember those things. Right. And so how is it helping you?
So we focus on, what my therapist has helped me do is focus on, what is the root belief? What is this thing that you believe? You're unworthy, you are not deserving of love, you're dirty. And then what we do is we go back through, and she helps me to reprocess. What is actually the truth about this? If this actually happened to you, or that there's something wrong with me, that's always been one of my biggest lies, is there's something wrong with me. Like, why did all this bad stuff happen? I must have caused it. Did I do something wrong? And when you're talking about a 3, 4, 5-year-old, you can't tell me that a 3, 4, or 5-year-old
did anything
something wrong to deserve grooming and rape and constant sexual abuse. You cannot tell me that.
Right.
And I believe that in my rational head.
Right.
If anyone were to come to me and say, well, you know, my 3-year-old really just deserved it, I would go, you are out of your head.
Right.
Any rational human would look at that. But when it's in our own heads, it's our own lore. It's our own things that we've told ourselves, and we've allowed the enemy to keep saying to us again and again and again until we know what the real story is. You know, it's really difficult to process. And this is the therapy that I've been going through, is to go, oh my gosh, I didn't do anything wrong. It's not my fault.
Right. Yes. I think it's one of those things, like when something like that's happened to you, then you have the feeling of dirty, but maybe you don't connect it to what happened to you. Like in your case, you didn't have any memories, or in my case, I like, well, that was so long ago, that can't be, like, I'm bad for a different reason. It can't be that, kind of thing, even though I remembered it. And until you actually deal with what happened to you, you're willing to look at it, then you make the connection of, this has influenced practically every decision I've made since this happened to me, because it's still, because I've not ever really dealt with it, experienced forgiveness and freedom to, So
it's just it's a poison root that really just goes through the theme of my life. And and now that I'm seeing the poison, and I'm going, Jesus, heal me now. Like, I am tired of these lies, Lord. You have to tell me what the truth is. Help me. And he's brought people that have really, I mean, I cannot believe, I never asked for this. God just was like, here, let me give you this person and this person.
Right.
Because I got something I need you to do in the future.
And you're going to need them. Right. So
amazing.
When we talked earlier, you talked about feelings of fear and being out of control. Like, that was something that was present in your life a lot before you started counseling. Talk to us just a little bit about what kind of those experiences, because I know there are people that are watching and listening that have those kind of feelings of, like, fear, being out of control, panic, out of whatever words you want to, anxiety, whatever you want to put around that. So talk to us a little bit about what that felt like, and how now you've developed some tools that help you cope better with those feelings.
Yeah. And, honestly, Angie, if there is anyone out there, I just want to tell you, I know what this, I know how hard this is. Sometimes it's so hard to hear. And I love that Angie said, watch this with a friend. These overwhelming feelings of anxiety. I mean, they diagnosed me at one point that I had clinical anxiety, clinical depression. I had social anxiety. I had generalized all this stuff. And what it feels like, honestly, is like I'm standing on the ice and this monster's under the ice, and it keeps knocking. It keeps knocking on the ice and trying to crack through. And I keep trying to hold it down. I keep trying to hold it down, put on my happy face. Like, I look so normal, but yet I am dying inside. I am just trying to keep the crazy. I'm trying to go, okay, I'm just functioning for this minute. I'm trying to help for this minute and keep all this fear from going sideways and hitting on things that, and people that they don't know why I'm reacting like this.
Right.
And
I used
so
to
that's
think,
hard.
see if this is the same for you. I used to really question my own understanding of my reality. Do you pick that up at all? Do you know what I mean? Like, am I going crazy, or like, is the world the way I see it? Or like, because it felt like there was something that I could never, not really control, but there was something that I couldn't understand. Like, I could never work out. I just kept working, and I could never know my place somewhere.
It around.
Just
buffering.
You kept circling it around, it's just buffering and buffering and never loading.
That's it. It's like the ice. I keep putting more ice down, because if I let the monster out, it's going to hurt the people on the shore.
Right.
And so you just keep that buffering, that I just keep building up the ice. And finally I'm 49 and it's broken. The dragon has been out.
Yes.
And we know what it is.
Yeah.
And we're slaying it. We are working to kill it. And a lot of what I've been using, there are a couple things I want to talk to you about. First I want to just say, to anyone out there, if you know somebody who's gone through this, or if you yourself are going through it, I want to put it out there. Number one, there's no shame in having anxiety. If you are not alone, and especially right now in this season and in the world, everybody has anxiety. Some of us have it for many other different reasons. If you have a background or a history like mine, maybe it's a physical abuse or a sexual abuse or emotional abuse, you're not alone. And that's one thing I want everyone to know, and that we understand you're not alone. We can stand with you. Number two, I want to give permission to get help. I did not seek help for 46 years. I didn't seek help. And I wondered why I was struggling so hard. And I felt so ashamed that I needed help, that maybe when I'm so sad, I was ashamed that I thought, is it that my faith isn't that big? Is it that I'm really not saved? I question my salvation. But you can go get help for trauma. There is help. And so that there is hope, because you can get it. And I will tell you, one of the best things my friend did, my psychoanalyst friend did, before I even began the EMDR therapy, she equipped me with coping mechanisms, lots of different coping mechanisms. I mean, I have an anxiety toolbox on index cards that I use for when I go from my rational thinking, okay, everything's okay brain, to the fear-seated one, the one that is all emotional, hyper emotional, scared, freaked out, the fight, flight, freak out response, the parasympathetic. And this index card that I have has so many different tools on it that I can call on at any different time, depending on if it's a panic attack, anxiety, whatever it is. And it's really interesting. You can get physical. Like, I've actually smashed glasses. Okay, now let's just talk about this. They were all thrift store glasses, and they were ugly, but I have smashed glasses because that physicality of why am I so upset? And I knew why. I could smash the glass, and there was something so cathartic about the shattering, because it mimicked how I was shattered as a child. I could go for a walk with a dog. There's all the physical things that you can do. I write and journal. That has been exceptionally cathartic for me. I also am able to phone a friend. Like, I've built a network of friends and girlfriends who are trusted, who know the story, that they know as I've been walking through this, that I can text and go, I'm freaking out right now. Or, can you just pray for me? And they're like, I got you covered.
Yeah, right.
Or, can I call you and talk to you?
Yeah.
And they are like, sister, I'm there for you at 2 a.m. If you need prayer, I'm there.
Yeah.
And so finally, the other part of that anxiety toolbox is that we all have tools that we use to cope with our anxiety, right? Some of them aren't good ones.
Yeah.
some of them are really, really bad ones.
They range on a continuum of how destructive they are, right? I mean, because you've got like, there's this like, there's everything from good things like you're talking about that you're developing to like numbing. I'm just watching too much Netflix, which really is like not good, but it's not to substance abuse. And, you know, and then there's like, and then hurting other people, like with your own violence or abuse or something. Like there's this continuum of how we deal with our past, our trauma, our anxiety, you know, whatever. And so absolutely. And we've got to keep moving that to the more healthy end. Yeah.
100%. So this little toolbox, you know, I was equipped with with a 3-year-old's toolbox. And it was things like, you know, I'm in denial. I didn't remember a thing. That was a tool that I used. And it was very helpful for many years until I got to a very safe place that scripturally, foundationally, etc. But there were also, you know, I've used everything from numbing, you know, you talk about numbing with alcohol or whatever, to, you know, eating disorders. You can overeat, undereat, you can over-exercise, like all of these, the realm that it goes through. Denial, suicidal fantasies, hurting yourself. Like, I'm throwing those tools away. Suicide is off the table for me now. And can I tell you how relieved my husband is? Can I tell you how relieved my 18-year-old son is to know that he does not have to walk in and wonder, is mom okay because she had something happen?
Right.
And so, you know, these tools that we have used for so long that we, you know, suicide and fantasizing about suicide was something that got me through as a teenager, thinking if I needed to end it, I could. It's not a good one.
Because a lot of those, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them is about realizing you have no control over something, but claiming, like the eating, the substance abuse, the suicidal fantasies, I can control that. So if I have to, right? A lot of it is about control 100%. Because we feel so out of control in another area. So talk to us a little bit about, you have spent a ton of time in the Bible, researching for other pastors and all. How has being a Bible student and spending a lot of time in the Bible been a good weapon for you as you've battled this? Because I know from talking to you that it has been. Yeah, talk to us about that a little bit.
Well, and I was just going to go back real quick and just say, if anybody, you know, if you are out there and you're like, I do not have a good toolbox, I am happy. I've coached some people through figuring out, like, this is how you can cope. And not only this is how you can cope, this is how your family members who are around you can help you. There's so many different coping mechanisms. And I would love to, you know, if you want to email me or contact me, that's going to be something I think I'm going to start putting together.
I think that's beautiful.
How do we put together, how do I help you build your toolbox?
Yeah.
Because I don't want you to walk away and go, well,
and I'll put your website and in the comments when we're done here, and I'll also put it in the show notes. So if somebody's finding this later, they can refer to it there, and that way they can find you and reach out and learn more about, you know, about that toolbox. For me, people who know me well know that I dance it out. I call it, like, especially before I'm going to speak or teach, if I have something that I know, because now I used to not know that I had this like emotional crash after I did something. I used to not understand what that was. As the Lord taught me more about, you know, healing, and then he taught me to develop this toolbox, and I have playlists of songs that infused me with what I call a spiritual confidence. Is that an okay way to put that, right? Like, no, you can do that. And so I have some funny stories to tell about this. I won't do them all right now, but so I find a quiet place. Like, if somebody asks me to speak, one of the things I say, I need a quiet place, you know, and I've been in closets, I've been in bathrooms, I don't care. It doesn't have to be fancy. I just need to be alone. So I was at this retreat that I was speaking at in the winter, this past winter. And I found this janitor's closet, and it was for teenage girls. And I was talking about because what happened to me happened when I was in high school. And so it was just like really bringing up all kinds of fun stuff. And so I found this janitor's closet. And so I'm in there listening to music and dancing and praising the Lord, just kind of the way I do it when we call it dancing out. And do you know that 5 different people while I was in there, I scared the bejeebers out. I'm like, who needs it? How do 5 people need in this janitor's closet? And everybody's like, okay, the preacher lady is in in the closet doing some kind. I'm like, oh man, they're never asking me back here, but oh well.
You can't take you anywhere, Angie, right?
However, I stand firm on my toolbox, what Leigh's talking about. You know, when you find what works for you to connect to the Holy Spirit and the reminder that we are loved and accepted, isn't that's the key? What reminds you when you're struggling with anxiety, depression, all these things that Leigh's talking about? What reminds you of the truth that you are loved and accepted? And I think it can be whatever. Do you see this fly flying around my head? Whatever it is, that's your toolbox, right? And it can be a variety of things. But anyway, yeah.
I think the things that step you into the truth, and you know, as mentioned, you know, I for the last 3 years, I did deep dives into scripture.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like sometimes up to 8 to 10 hours a day of just Bible research for sermon series and helping out with sermons for preaching pastors. My preaching pastors, we had 3 of them. And man, the deep dives.
Yes.
If we do not know the truth, and I was a Bible teacher before that, you know, I always was a facilitator, led small groups. I'm in leadership. My husband is chairman of the elders. I mean, there's just like, this is just how it is. But those deep dives in scripture of really going and believing, like again and again, what is the character of God?
Yeah.
Is God's character that he looked at me and created me as a vessel of destruction, one that deserves to be abused, one that deserves to go to the pits of hell and live there while on earth? Is that what God created me for?
Right.
Because if I didn't know scripture and the character of God and Jesus Christ himself, I would be very, very tempted to believe I was an unholy vessel created for destruction and abuse.
And I think it's interesting that you point out how active you've been in your church, because the two things don't have to go together. Like there are a lot of people in church that are learning how to do church better, but we need to be in church to learn how to do Jesus better. And that I think that it's just so imperative that we understand we are not, however you need to get into your Bible, you've got to learn the heart of God for yourself in the Word. You know, get into a class, get into a Bible, you know, whatever. I teach Bible, Leigh teaches Bible. There you go. There's two opportunities, right? And she's not perfect at it. I'm not perfect at it. You know, we're students also, but I've been studying and teaching the Bible for 20 years, and the church faith community has been so important in my growth and healing. But it is studying the Bible and knowing Jesus for myself that has brought the freedom that I experience now. So anyway, that's just my little PSA.
Yeah, well, and you know, with that, if you do not know what the truth of scripture is, you have no hope.
You can't stand firm. And so everything will knock you over. Yeah, I
and
totally
the
agree.
enemy's going to win, and you're going to go under. I wouldn't, honestly, if I had not done the deep dives that I had done before, and knowing God, who God is, his goodness and his greatness, I think I probably would be dead by now. I don't think I would be sitting here.
I agree. I would say the same. Yeah, so, I agree.
Yeah, that's how important it is.
I know. Yeah. Let's talk just for a second about how these issues of anxiety, sexual abuse, some of the other things we've been talking about today are, I think, taboo. Is that the right word for the church still? Sometimes I think there are things that we're getting better as faith communities of talking about. I'm not sure I'm pretty sure we're not great on this one. You know, for me now, I talk about my abuse openly, but for 25 years I didn't. And I just carried that shame, even in my faith communities. And I was a good church girl too. And I served and I did all the things. But I didn't know that was a safe place. And I don't even know for sure that it was. But how do we create, that maybe are, I would not say we have arrived by any means, but we who are a little bit farther along in the journey, how do we create safe space for our sisters who have their own stories of abuse, neglect, trauma, even hurt within the church? That's a huge issue that people bring into other churches. And so how do we create safe space for that kind of stuff?
You know, for me, I can really, I look at it as a leadership thing. I look at it as an equipping thing. But for what I can do right now in the positions and the circles of influence that I have, it's for me just to begin boldly sharing what Jesus has done in my life, even though I have had I've had these mental health struggles, but my gosh, I can't believe how far he has healed me in 7 months. I think when we begin to talk about these hidden shames, just even in general, like church hurts or whatever that is that we have in our, the mess that becomes the message, if you will. I think that a lot of it is that it makes people feel like, again, they're not alone. Which, when shame is hidden in the darkness, it makes you feel like there's something wrong with me. I mentioned doubting my salvation before, because I'm looking around at all these seemingly perfect women and I want to be just like them. And yet I don't see them struggling with, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Why don't I have fruit of the Spirit all the time? Like it seems like everybody else does. And I think that was probably one of the biggest struggles when 2 years ago, I went through a huge depression. We had all sorts of deaths. My father-in-law died. I loved him, and it just really threw me into the pit. And I remember being so depressed. I just lost a lot of weight. I couldn't get out of bed almost to get like stuff going. And I remember going to my boss. She's the executive pastor's wife, and going, "What's wrong with me? Do I not know Jesus? What's wrong with me? Like, I guess I was never saved. And I feel like I need to have this medication and all this stuff." And she's like, "If you don't take your medication, that's wrong. You need to take the medication that they've given you to keep you okay." And I just remember finally feeling like, oh my gosh, I have permission from the top to get help. But before that, I don't feel like I ever was okay to talk about this. It's I feel like inside of the church, a lot of times we just go, "Oh, just cast your anxiety on Jesus. You're going to be fine."
Yes.
But for those of us who are clinically, like, our brains have been soaked and bathed in trauma hormones. Please don't tell me, don't give me a platitude. I didn't need a platitude. Pray for me. But point me in the direction so I can actually get help for the problems that I'm suffering from right now. We have the root of the problem is a sin issue, and Jesus covers that. But the symptoms, all these symptoms that come after it, I sometimes think like we could do better with what flows out of the sins that have been done to us. We can do a whole lot better than we do inside the church. And I think just giving people permission to seek help, counseling, trauma therapy, whatever that is outside the church, I think that's been one of the biggest things I've found that people have responded back to me saying is, "Thank you for giving me permission to start counseling. I felt like I couldn't."
It makes me think of 10 years ago, I was in a head-on car crash and I was hurt real bad. And what did they do? They came and got me out of the car and they took me to the hospital and began to administer treatment so that my body could heal. But we don't have the same response when it's been our heart or our brain that has been hit like that, right? Because there's the destruction is inside. So what do? Like you said, we put on our happy face and we go about our day and we try, but inside we are in desperate need of treatment, whatever that looks like, so that our injured organs, our how do I say it? Our spirit can begin to heal. And if we just, if they had just left me there, my body would not have healed. Those broken bones would not have, it needed. And if we just leave our trauma, it doesn't heal. Time does not heal. Time by itself does not heal. In my opinion, it only gets heavier. Those boxes, as pretty as they were, Leigh, they only got heavier over time.
And they got bigger too.
Right, yeah. And so, time itself doesn't heal our spirit any more than our body would heal if it was left alone in that kind of condition.
And a lot of it too is even just starting to talk about it for me and inside my church. Like, I've answered emails for, like, given my suggestions on how should the pastor answer the email from the woman who's writing in. I've put together a panel at a women's conference just talking about general anxiety, nothing specific, bringing in the experts, talking about how scripture ties directly in with the counseling for me, and how can we help those of us who struggle. And what's really crazy is that, can I say crazy? It's not crazy. Inside of those rooms, there are a lot of nodding heads who are going, I suffer from that too. I didn't know I could get help. I didn't know I had permission to even speak about this. we wonder if it's a reflection of our faith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
sometimes we're told
place.
that it is. Sometimes we're told that it is a reflection of our faith. And I just want to put in a little, most pastors, not all, because there are a few that are probably, but most pastors are not counselors. They're not trauma therapists by means. And so a pastor can be a helpful resource in your faith journey and point you to some things. But I just encourage everyone, like, don't think that a couple meetings with your pastor, how do I say this? And I'm just going to say it. Don't think a couple meetings with your pastor is going to fit, like, you, when you need help, hopefully your pastor would have a good list of community resources or references or whatever, that kind of thing. But you may need someone who is trained in this specific area to really help you get to the other side of that. And so I'll be done with that little PSA also.
I couldn't have said it better. I'm so glad you just threw it on the field and go, look at it, and that's the way it is.
Maria says, I love the idea of the mess in the message. So she's sending that encouragement out to you. And Lisa is saying, this is so good. Thank you for your authenticity. It's interesting that people sometimes, after I share pieces of my story, it's the things that I used to think. And when I kept them more hidden, I used to think this is the thing that I tell people and then they're going to not like me, right? Because then they're like, oh my gosh. And it's so interesting that so often the things that I was so worried about sharing with other people are the things that actually they respond to the most and appreciate the most. And for what that's worth, I don't know, but I think.
Thank you. I need to hear that right now, because this is the stuff that I have. Well, I didn't know about, but I sure as heck would have never talked about it,
right,
or written about it, except that. So I write for I've written for magazine, and the magazine publisher's wife is like, "You have to document this journey."
Yeah.
And I kept going, I don't want to. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Like, this is so terrifying and scary, and yet this is what people are saying that they want to hear about. Not that it. And I never to talk about just the sin of it and the horrific part, but people need to hear that happens.
Yes.
And then Jesus goes, let me show you.
Yeah.
Let me show you beautiful ones.
Our most effective witness, I believe this, our most effective witness is this is where my life is an illustration of God's redemptive story, right? This is how he's using my life as an illustration, as an example of how he redeems all things. And Satan wants nothing more than to keep us quiet about that. And so there's this like war going on in terms of God inviting us to point other people to him through our story, and Satan reminding us of any negative thing, any lie that he can put in our heart so that we will keep our mouths shut. And I think that when we begin to tell our story and we realize, and some people may not do it with us. Some people may say that is too messy. I'm not going there with you. But I believe God will send other people who can stand with us. I know he has for me anyway, who will stand with us and not look away and say, actually, I love you more. So it makes me emotional. I actually love you more because you're willing to share this part of your heart. Yeah.
It's the hardest part.
Right. Yeah. I know you wanted, I'm watching our time, and before we're done, I know you wanted to talk just a little bit about forgiveness and what that journey is like for you also. So will you just tell us a little bit what's on your mind about how forgiveness and that option, can I say it that way? That choice?
The option.
Yes.
That's option, also an anxiety tool.
The option of forgiveness. Yes. So talk to us just a little bit about that before we wrap up.
Sure. Yeah. And I was listening to Cheryl Shoemake. You had her on the show, and I loved her story. And I'm like, I have to hit on the story of forgiveness and how all the stuff that's happened to me, and I don't even know how many there were.
Yeah.
That's one of the scary portions of this, is I have no idea how many people. But what I really want.
I'm sorry. I just want to pause right there and just say, for that you carry, I am truly sorry that is part of your story.
Thank you. Yeah. That's another one of those Jesus goes, you don't need to know all of them.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to know
at least, right? At least not for now, because it's not, he decides what's helpful for us to remember, I think, I believe that.
Great.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't mean to get you off track, but I just wanted to acknowledge that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But even just knowing, okay, I almost forgot what the question was. But even just knowing that I don't have to know all of that. And even knowing that I should have been protected from this, I want in one day, like I cannot keep holding on to the poison of unforgiveness. Just like what you talked about with Cheryl.
Yeah.
I want to participate in my healing
Yes.
by making the choice to forgive, even when I'm not feeling it.
Right.
Even when I'm going to ask Jesus to help me feel forgiveness, even when I don't feel like it, because I want to be able to participate in my own healing.
Yes.
And here's the other portion of it too, Angie. The enemy wants to keep us silent about these issues. We think people will turn their heads away from us in shame.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
I can't look at that.
You're just too much. You're too much.
Yeah.
And honestly, if he can keep you silent, then you can't call for help. And if you can't call for help,
say that again.
Continue.
Say that. If he can keep you silent,
you can't
call for help. Oh, those are powerful words. And guess what he does?
He drags you off into the corner and eats you alive. And
I think he also makes you believe that no one would come even if you called. You think that's true? Like no one's going to help you.
Especially with childhood sexual abuse. No one came to help. No one came to rescue. The people that should have didn't.
Yeah.
And so if you cannot call for help, you will continue to feel alone. And the worst part about this is that the enemy gains more ground. And that is not what we are called to do. And I might just preach like a tiny mini sermon right here. We are a holy priesthood. And we are called to spread the gospel of hope of Jesus Christ to the ends of the earth. And if we are cowering in a corner and allowing the enemy to eat us alive, to eat us for lunch and spit us back out and then chew on us again, we cannot participate in the kingdom of light like God has appointed us to do. And so for me, I have to throw off these shackles of lies.
Yeah, it's like for me, I think I've got work to do. I can't get bogged down in this unforgiveness again. And I don't know about you, but I have to like do the same acts of forgiveness over and over. Like I for me anyway, it's a process. It's not a one and done. I don't decide to forgive and then I never think about it again. Things come up and it raises its ugly head again. And I have to say it. I don't have time to carry that bitterness. I don't have the luxury of being able to be angry about that. Like I have to let that go because I've got work to do, and I mean like not work, productive work, but like hard work, like you're saying. I have to participate in my own healing, and holding on to this just it not only slows it down, it can actually just pause it or stop it completely. So I appreciate you encouraging us with that.
Anything that impedes your healing might impede somebody else's healing too, because you have something to share.
Yeah. A couple more comments. I just want to say, Debbie is saying that she says, I'm so sorry, Leigh. God shines in your life and he will use your story to encourage, help, and support others who face this. Thank you for being willing to tell it. Thank you, Debbie. Appreciate your comment on that. Things like that, especially to Leigh today, I think, because when you're in the early days of telling your story out loud, you wonder, oh, what on earth am I doing? Because it might have just felt better if I'd have kept this, because it changes things. So I just want to say to you, thank you so much for your willingness to come on and talk to us today. I know that your story is dark, but your life is light. And so we see the light today. We mourn the darkness, but we see the light, and it is all hope and love and peace. And so we just thank you. And tell us before we sign off, tell us where to find you. What's your website, and anything else that you want to share about following you on Facebook, Instagram? Where can we find you so we can see what you're doing?
Sure. I write as The Church Girl Writes because no one can spell my name properly. So I am The Church Girl Writes, and you can follow me on www.thechurchgirlwrites.com.
Okay.
And my handle on Instagram as well as Facebook is The Church Girl Writes. Twitter. Okay. Where else?
All the
you
things.
Can find me as The Church Girl Writes. All the things.
Can you link to those things through your Facebook page also? Can you find you on Facebook and stuff from your? Yeah. Okay. I hope. Yeah. But then you're like, oh no, I didn't know. Then I'm like, make you look bad. Sorry. No,
I hope so. We'll see.
I'll get that done right now. I'm just kidding. Yeah. I I will.
Go to the website, put in your email. I'll be writing you back.
Send Leigh an email and she will get back to you. But I will put all that information again on where to find and follow Leigh in the comments underneath the live video and also in the show notes when it's uploaded other places. So Leigh, you have been a delight today. I love you. And I'm so grateful that you shared your witness and testimony with us today. Thank you very much. So we're going to sign off. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Peace.
Thanks, Didion.
I want to thank Leigh again for allowing me to share space with her as she told us pieces of her story. All of our lives can be a beautiful illustration of God's redemption, and my prayer is that you can know, whatever your story is, it is not too big for God to cover. It is not too bad for God to use. Leigh's website and my email address are listed in today's show notes, and I've also put phone numbers for both the National Suicide Prevention Hotline and the National Sexual Assault Hotline in there as well. If you or someone you love has been a victim of sexual abuse and trauma, today is the right day to reach out for help. It took me 25 years to talk about my abuse. It took Leigh 46 years to begin to deal with what happened to her. But she is dealing with it now, and God is walking with her on this journey. Reach out and grasp a hand if you need to. Today is the right day to take a step on the path towards healing. Thank you so much for listening, friend. I pray that wherever your day takes you, you are walking in the confident knowledge that you are a beloved, cherished child of God. Peace.